have a fit. Without a fit, there's no need for it. And I'm going to demonstrate that for you guys in a little bit. Now, if you're working on a team, so what does innovation mean for a team? Simple as this. I need you to create synergy. I need you to create that collective thought where 1 plus 1 can equal 3. Where the two of you together, thinking, can create something that couldn't be created before. Now, if I have two people, and let's just illustrate it this way. If I have two people that are arguing with each other, -1 plus -1 equals what? -2, unless you throw some other calculation in there. So you're not getting synergy. Use this mathematical formula to understand that as you bring people together, those people that are negative are going to kill innovation. And by kill innovation, when we start talking about the culture of innovation, I'll give you a great example. I was in an audience of about 40 people. A senior director asked if anyone had a good idea to solve a problem. And about 6 of us raised our hands. And then he called on one specific person, and that person illustrated and described what the solution was. And the senior leader that was in the room said, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Does anyone else have a good idea?" How many of those hands do you think went down? Everybody's hand went down. How many people do you think were open and willing to share with others their ideas? You're going to have to learn how to create a culture or a microculture of creativity where you're honestly open to sharing anything, wild, woolly, crazy. And that's the formula that we're going to go through. And for your organizations, it's the way to the future. It's the only way you're going to get there. So, that's what innovation is. What is innovation not? Innovation is not something that has a single function. This function is to eliminate what you did. This is called a useless machine. Professor Minsky, while he was at MIT and working at Bell Labs, was given the task of coming in as an employee and coming up with something. No requirements, so they floated him no requirements. They told him, do whatever you want. So what he did was he created something that does nothing. Feel free to share it with everybody. Its only task is to undo what you do. You hit a switch, and it unhooks it. So feel free to share it. Okay? That's not a need. Okay? That's a useless machine. I need you all to think about. Your paradigms have to change about creating things that are relevant for yourselves. You must have a need for your idea. Okay? It's got to start with a need. What else is not innovation? A Rube Goldberg. Has anyone ever seen something similar to a Rube Goldberg? It means that you've created something so complex out of something that could have been so simple. You've gone and created all these elaborate things that don't need to be there. So what I need you to focus on is making things practical. So it's balancing that practicality and novelty. And things that are novel are what you can measure from a patent, from a trademark, from intellectual property. You'll see that word used over and over again. Is it relevant? Is it novel? Because if it isn't, it's not new. So let's jump into what I'm referring to as the process of innovation, and what that actually is. You're going to hear me use the word innovation and creativity interchangeably at times, and that's because creativity is a tool that's used in innovation. For me, innovation is a process. It is the process of creating those new ideas, those new epiphanies. And it umbrellas a whole bunch of things. And some of those things are really soft and fuzzy, and you can't put your hands on. So if I tell you that I need a mathematical formula for ROI, how many people are from the business school? There's a standard formula for ROI. Anybody know it? It deals with cost, it deals with resources, it deals with the tangible things.
Return of investment?
Say that again.
Return of investment?
Yep, return on investment. Standard mathematical formula the business school teaches. But if you went back and said, not return on investment, I want an ROI for return on inspiration. What's the mathematical formula for that? What is the return on ideas? What is the return on integration? What is the return on something like importance, improvement? Those are all ROIs that are not tangible. You know, where are you going to find the mathematical formulas for things like that? So when we start talking about ideas and creating ideas, things that are new and unique, and how they're relevant to each other. If your company's coming back and saying, I need an ROI to measure that, you need to sit down with them and say, what do you mean? Is it cost? Is it schedule? Is it a technical parameter? And all of those are things that are needed in the innovation process. So let's talk about the innovation process. It drives me crazy. Hang on. When I work with a company, and I come in and I say, do you have a process for innovation? And they say, yes. And I say, show it to me. And they look at me and go, what? Show me the process. Process is usually put down on paper. Oh, we don't have it written on paper. Okay, so you don't have a process on paper, but you have a process, yeah. What are the steps? Oh, well, you know, our guys get together and they just create ideas. Well, no, that's very organic, yes. It's free-flowing, yes, but it's not a process. So for innovation, start with a need, have a process. And processes, the beauty of a process, and you all know this from an engineering perspective, because you're going to be the ones writing processes, process documents. If I have a process, I can publish it, I can repeat it, and I can hand it to 2,000 people and they know what it means. I can practice it, I can teach it, and with more use and more continued development with the process, you can get better with it. You can improve your performance. So you have to have a process. And with the process of, let's call it innovation, there's two key characteristics to it. One is iteration. So when we say that it's, you know, it's not always linear, you may not get the right idea the first time. You may have to go back again and again and again and keep working on that. Okay? And then abstraction. I needed to change my mental model. I needed to change that mindset. Move to a different point of view. How would it look if I was here versus here? Those are characteristics of a process. And it takes cognitive tools. And by that I mean thinking tools. Ways to think differently. And that synthesis of knowledge that we get from that, patterns, trends, themes, are going to be critical when we start talking about systemic, process-based innovation methods. And that's with the focus that we're going on. Okay? So, let's pull at that process a little bit more. Let's take that process. There has to be at least 3 steps. As a minimum, you have to take it, and from a divergent standpoint, you've got to pull things apart, then you've got to make a change, and you've got to put them back together. Remember the previous speaker's plan, do, study, action chart? The Deming-Schuhart model? That is a process for innovation. If you look at it, it's got 4 steps to it, and it has a cycle. So there's an interconnected cycle to it. It does everything that we're looking for in some level of process. And there are multiple processes that are out there, but I always say you have to start with a need. So what is the need? And that can be the need of the customer, stakeholders, shareholders, whatever it is that you need to change, whatever it is you need to make that change about, has to start with a need. And at the end of the cycle, you've got to do a verification. There's got to be a V&V section. Did it meet that need? If it didn't, the process goes back and you change it. You do it again, you repeat it. Similar to the plan, do, study, act cycle. Okay? Let's keep pulling at it. These are all processes that are out there for innovation. You can grab any one of these, and one of the characteristics that you'll see is that they all have an interconnected nature to them. So let's look at things from a systems perspective. That means there's different levels to the system, and it means that there's an iteration. There's different cycles that happen. There's things that pull out and pull in. All of these different methods for innovation will get you basically the same type of ideas. Some of them, depending on their interconnected nature, can be used for very, very simple problems to come up with simple solutions. Others, more elegant problems, to come up with more elegant solutions. And when we get into systemic and process-based innovation methods, those can be used for what I'll call those hard problems, those complex problems, ones that are based on contradictions. I have to have this and I have to have this at the same time, simultaneously. Those are the kind of problems that are called wicked problems. They deal with chaos. They deal with all of the interconnected nature. Things are dynamic, they're fluid, and they're really hard to solve. There are tools out there that can help you get there. patterns, themes, and trends. So, with that tool set that we were describing earlier, I will tell you that history repeats itself over and over and over again. The problems we face now are similar to problems that were faced in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. The words have changed, the mental models have changed, the technology has changed. But there are basic needs that follow with trends, patterns, and themes. Okay? Within patterns, if we look at it systemically, and I need you to become systems thinkers for a moment. I want everybody to hold your hand up and say, I'm a systems thinker. That means you think about more than just the elements and the components, you think about the interactions. I'm a systems thinker. I think about the functions, the interactions of all those components, those pieces. When I'm working on ideas, I'm looking at the front, the back, the up, the down. I'm looking at all the pieces to it. And there are 5 innovation patterns that you're going to see repeat themselves over and over and over again. And if you use these philosophies, you can solve some of those problems. So the first one is subtraction. You can take something out of the system. Removing it from the system, de-scope. If it's a problem, separate it from the original. That's subtraction. The next one's multiplication. Add more copies to it. If I've got a 3-legged, okay, here's an example. I've got a 3-legged table, and it's unstable. What do I do? Multiplication. What do I add to it? A 4th leg. Exactly. So there's just a quick example of something from a multiplication standpoint. You can repeat things over and over to solve that problem. Another one is division. Take things apart, divide them, subdivide them. Followed by task unification. Change that task. Transfer or assign that task to something else. You've got an engine that's blowing hot. Take that hot air and divert it and use it for something else, like propulsion. Turn something around. That's task unification. And then attribute dependency change. Change the dependent relationships. Think about things from that perspective. Those are the 5 patterns. So there's 5 pieces for you right there. 5 patterns. Let's talk about themes now. There are 10 themes that are consistent across time, over and over again, that pop up in problems, that pop up in designs, and that solutions can be based on. The first thing is consolidation. What can I merge? What can I put together? And these are going to sound similar to the patterns, but they're different. So you can go in and remember, a theme is different than a pattern. A pattern, who plays roulette? Anybody play roulette? If I look at the roulette table, the pattern would be the number 36, which is my favorite number, has come up 4 times in the last half hour, right? So that's that. The theme might be that I'm in an Indian casino and I always do better in all Indian casinos here in California so I can get to Vegas. Okay? So just to kind of illustrate the difference between that. Bypassing, cut something out. If you've got a customer and you can cut that customer's middleman out of it. What does Amazon do now with delivery of books that they didn't do before? They eliminated mailing them to you. I get electronic books in a PDF format as soon as I say yes. I eliminated the middleman. I no longer need the mailman to bring me the box, to hand it to me, to open it. You don't need somebody to package it. Right? So that's an example of that. Value migration, shift to a more profitable industry. Think about these things. These are all solutions, ways to do it. Team up. You'll notice a lot.